Okay, let's unpack this. We are about to go on, I think, one of the most foundational journeys you can take.
It really is.
Today, we're not just looking at a single story of Jesus Christ. We're looking at something much more complex, a harmonized, multi-perspective masterwork, really. It lays the groundwork for the entire Christian story.
That's right. Our sources are the very first verses from all four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and we're weaving them together chronologically.
And it feels like the ultimate four-camera angle approach, which is just so essential for getting at the complexity of who Christ is.
It really is. Think about it like this. You get four expert eyewitnesses in a room. You ask them to describe the same person, but each one has a slightly different focus, a different angle. They're tailoring their story to their audience.
So when you merge them.
Exactly. When you merge them, you don't find contradictions. What you find is this incredible depth. The gaps get filled in, and you're left with a portrait that's just so robust and complete.
I love that analogy, the four camera angles. It means we're moving beyond just a story, and we're looking at Jesus through these four unique theological frameworks right from the very beginning. So what are those four identities our sources establish?
Well, each of the four evangelists, they define a specific role, and these are absolutely foundational. First, Matthew. He presents Jesus as the king.
The Messiah.
The promised Messiah of Israel, yeah. He's focused on that royal lineage, the fulfillment of prophecy, and just supreme authority.
Okay, so that's one.
Then you have Mark. Mark is all about action. He sees Jesus as the servant, obedient, active, powerful in his deeds, but also humble. His focus is on that immediate, tireless work.
And Luke.
Luke gives us Jesus as the ultimate man, the perfect human. He's empathetic, his story is rooted in verifiable history, and he's the universal savior for everyone.
Which leaves John.
And John gives us perhaps the most staggering perspective. Jesus as the eternal God, the pre-existent Word, the divine Son. He's defining who Jesus is at his absolute core before anything else.
That sets up our mission perfectly then. Our deep dive today is designed to give you, the listener, a real sense of certainty. We're going to look at John's cosmic prologue.
Luke's meticulous historical method.
The intricate legal and human genealogies from both Matthew and Luke, and then that preparatory work surrounding John the Baptist.
Our goal is that you walk away from this feeling like your understanding of this foundation, the very first moments of the New Testament, is based on solid, verifiable, and theologically robust facts.
Just like Luke himself put it, right. We want you to know the certainty of these words.
Exactly.
So if Luke starts with history, where do we begin?
We have to start where John starts, outside of history. The story of Jesus simply can't begin in a manger in Bethlehem.
It has to begin in eternity.
It has to. John 1.1 immediately establishes Christ's pre-earthly existence as the Logos, the Word.
And that first sentence is just so dense, so profound. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John doesn't ease us into it at all. He just hits us with this incredible triple assertion of Christ's identity.
He really does. And we have to take that apart because this one sentence basically defines Christianity. First part, in the beginning was the Word.
Right.
This asserts Christ's co-eternality. John is deliberately, and I mean deliberately, echoing Genesis 1.1. In the beginning, God created.
Yeah.
But his emphasis is that the Word already was. He wasn't created. He has no starting point.
So it sounds like John is, almost preemptively getting ahead of future theological debates.
Oh, absolutely. This is his immediate declarative counter to any idea, even ideas that came up centuries later, like Arianism, which claimed that Jesus was a created being.
Just the first and greatest of God's creations or something like that.
Right. And John says, no, the Word is eternal. Full stop.
Okay, then the next part. And the Word was with God. Now, if he is God, why does John need to clarify that he was with God? That seems like a strange distinction.
That's the key to understanding his coexistence. And it establishes this profound relationality that exists within the Godhead. It means there's a distinction of persons, Father and Son, and they exist in this eternal fellowship.
So separate enough to be with God.
But close enough to be one with him. Yes. This is getting at the heart of the Trinity, isn't it? We're talking about a divine internal community.
A relationship at the very core of God's being.
Precisely. It's so deep. Theologians have a word for it, perichoresis. Now, that might sound a little academic, but just think of it as a kind of divine internal dance.
A dance?
Yeah, a perfect harmonious communion where each person of the Trinity is fully intertwined and mutually indwelling, but they remain distinct. The deepest insight John gives us here is that God is fundamentally relational. He's not some singular static force, but an eternal community of love.
And then, just so there's no misunderstanding, he lands the final punch, and the Word was God.
That's the co-deity. The Word, Jesus Christ, is fully and without any question God. He shares the exact same nature as the Father. There is zero ambiguity here.
And this connects directly to what he says later, doesn't it? About the Son being the ultimate revelation of the Father.
It's the foundation for it. You can't have the revelation without the deity.
Okay, so if the Word is God, what is his role in, well, everything else, the physical universe? John 1.3 is just astonishing. All things became through him, and apart from him, nothing was made which has been made.
This defines Jesus as the active agent and the universal mediator of creation. I mean, this goes so far beyond just being present at creation.
It's not like he was just watching.
Not at all. He is the mechanism, the engine, if you will, through which all of reality just springs into existence. And this immediately links to what the other apostles wrote. Paul in Colossians says he is before all things, and in him all things hold together.
He holds it all together.
And the writer of Hebrews says he upholds all things by the word of his power. It's this consistent testimony that the one who created everything is also the one actively sustaining it, moment by moment.
The implication for us, psychologically, spiritually, is just huge. If the person who created the cosmos, who literally holds atoms together, is also the central figure in our faith,
then your faith is anchored in the deepest reality of the universe. It's not just a set of beliefs.
Right. It makes Jesus supreme over every created order, whether it's material or spiritual.
And that supreme creator is also the source of our spiritual vitality. Look at verse 4. In him was the life, and the life was the light of men. The Word isn't just the source of existence, but the source of illumination, the light that guides humanity.
But then, just as quickly as he introduces light, John introduces conflict. Verse 5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not contained it. That feels like a cosmic declaration of war.
It is. This is not just some nice metaphor for ignorance versus knowledge. This introduces the profound theme of spiritual battle. The darkness, with a capital D, represents unredeemed rebellion, sin, and the spiritual opposition led by forces of evil.
And that word contained, it can be translated in a few ways, can't it?
Yes, and that's what's so fascinating. The Greek verb is katalambano. It means the darkness cannot grasp the light. It literally can't comprehend divine truth. But, and this is crucial, it also means the darkness cannot extinguish it. It can't defeat it.
So the light is persistent. It's unquenchable. It's always penetrating the opposition, no matter how strong that opposition is.
It is. And this connects so powerfully to the ancient hope of Israel, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It echoes all those Old Testament prophecies, especially that promise of hope right in the middle of oppression.
You're thinking of Isaiah.
I'm thinking of Isaiah 9.2. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. John is saying, in effect, that light is here. It has arrived. And no matter how thick the spiritual or moral darkness gets in the world, the divine truth cannot be suppressed.
So there's a behind-the-scenes warfare happening, but the victory of the light is, in a sense, already assured.
That's it.
This entire cosmic prologue, eternity, creation, spiritual conflict, it feels like it's all building to this one moment, this one verse that just flips everything we know about reality on its head. John 1.14.
The Word became flesh, and he dwelt among us.
This is it. The moment the eternal God enters time and space.
This is the theological climax of everything. It's the Incarnation. The fully divine Logos enters human existence. He becomes fully man, but without ever ceasing to be fully God.
It's the ultimate humility.
It's the profound mystery of God making himself accessible to us.
And that word John uses for dwelt skonos, it's incredibly specific. It feels like he's trying to tell us something much deeper than just, he lived among us.
He is. Skono literally means to tabernacle or to pitch a tent.
Yeah.
This is a powerful, intentional typology. He's drawing a direct line from this moment all the way back to the Old Testament.
The tabernacle in the wilderness.
Exactly. What was the tabernacle in Exodus? It was the physical, mobile structure where God's presence rested. It was the designated meeting place between a holy God and sinful humanity.
So John is saying Jesus is the new permanent tabernacle, the new meeting place.
Precisely. God's presence, which was once hidden behind veils and rituals inside a physical tent, is now personally and permanently fulfilled in Jesus. He is Emmanuel, God with us. He's accessible, visible, tangible. He is the living fulfillment of everything that the entire Old Testament sanctuary system was pointing toward.
And what did the eyewitnesses see when he tabernacled among them?
They saw his glory, the glory as of the only begotten beside the Father, full of grace and truth. This is divine glory, but it's experienced in human vulnerability.
It's not the fire and lightning on Mount Sinai.
No, not at all. It's a glory you perceive through faithfulness and mercy and truth embodied in a human life. And it confirms his unique status as the only begotten Son, the monogenes, the one who shares the very nature of the Father.
That concept of fullness, full of grace and truth, that leads us directly into the next verses, 16 through 18. It's about the overflowing results of the Incarnation. He says we have received grace upon grace.
That phrase, it speaks to Christ's fullness. It's not just one single act of grace. It's a layered, ongoing, inexhaustible favor. If you think about modern life, so much of it operates on a mindset of scarcity. Right?
Absolutely.
This idea that the believer receives from Christ's abundance, this overflowing, superabundant favor, is immensely reassuring. It never runs out.
And then John draws this very clear theological contrast in verse 17. The law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ.
And this is a statement of consummation, not conflict. The law was holy, it was good, but it primarily exposed sin and pointed toward the need for a perfection that no one could attain.
It set up a covenant based on external actions.
Exactly. On adherence. Jesus brings consummation. He is the living embodiment of the truth that the law was pointing towards. He ushers in the new covenant, which is based on grace and internal transformation. It's a profound theological shift. The new reality in Christ completely surpasses the limitations of the Mosaic system.
Which brings us to the ultimate mission of the Word becoming flesh, Revelation.
Yes. John 1:18 gives us the absolute pinnacle of intimacy. No one has ever seen God. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he reveals him.
In the bosom of a father. That's such an intimate phrase.
It indicates the closest possible relationship, intimate knowledge, complete reliance. And because of that unique relationship, Jesus is the only one who can truly reveal the Father's nature.
So he's the only one who can truly, what's the word? Exegete the Father.
That's the perfect word. Exegete literally means to lead out, to explain. Jesus is the sole trustworthy source of God's nature and character. And what that means for us, emotionally and spiritually, is that we don't have to guess. We don't have to speculate about what God is like.
We just look at Jesus.
We look at Jesus, his grace, his truth, his love, his power, and we see the Father. And that intimate revelation provides spiritual life and certainty.
Okay, so we've established Jesus as the eternal God, the creator. But for this story to actually matter to humanity, it has to be verifiable, right? It has to be grounded.
It has to be. And that's where Luke comes in. If John starts in eternity, Luke immediately brings us crashing down to earth into the archive. He provides that meticulous historical foundation.
He provides the rigor that anchors faith, in fact.
That's his whole goal. He wants to present Jesus as the ultimate man, a real, empathetic, verifiable human being who lived at a specific time and in a specific place.
And his prologue, Luke 1:1-3, it reads like the introduction to a serious historical document. He says that many have undertaken to compose a narrative, but he insists on an orderly account based on careful investigation.
That phrasing immediately tells us who Luke is writing for. This is for an educated, maybe even a skeptical audience. He's not just passing along church gossip or, unverified stories.
He's a historian, a physician, maybe?
Yes, often believed to be a Gentile physician and historian. And he is positioning his work within the absolute gold standard methods of his time, what we would call Hellenistic historiography. He emphasizes that he has completely followed all things accurately from the beginning.
But he wasn't one of the original disciples, so where did he get his information, his sources?
He tells us. He relied on first-hand eyewitnesses and ministers of the word. This is so critical. It asserts the reliability of his whole narrative because it's rooted in documentation from people who were physically there.
So this is God's sovereignty at work, using human research and detailed documentation.
Using the intellectual tools of history to confirm divine truth. Absolutely.
And this directly counters any modern idea that the Christian story is just, a myth or some oral tradition that got corrupted over time. Luke is essentially standing up and saying, look, I did the detective work. These facts stand up to scrutiny.
Exactly. For a first-century audience, especially anyone familiar with historians like Thucydides, this kind of methodological preface lent enormous credibility. Luke was making the Christian story accessible and credible to a broad, educated audience. He's positioning Jesus not just as another religious figure, but as the pivotal figure in all of human history.
And he dedicates this work to one person in particular, Most Mighty Theophilus. That title, it sounds important, like he's a person of high status.
He almost certainly was. While the name Theophilus literally means lover of God, that title, Most Mighty, or kratist in the Greek, indicates a person of rank. A Roman official, perhaps, or a wealthy patron who was financing the work.
So Theophilus might be a specific person, or he might be a representative for a whole class of readers.
Either way, Luke is ensuring that this important person, or the broad circle he represents, receives a document that is built on verified truth.
And the stated goal, right there in verse 4, is pure assurance, that you might know the certainty of the words about which you were instructed.
This is the real psychological and spiritual driver of Luke's work. He's writing to combat doubt, to fight confusion and anxiety, whether that's from external persecutors or just internal disorientation.
It sounds incredibly relevant for today.
Oh, completely. In any culture that's full of competing claims, what we might call our modern post-truth environment, Luke provides a stable, anchored foundation. Certainty, for the believer, isn't based on a feeling. It's based on documented, verifiable truth.
So for us today, Luke's methodology is just incredibly encouraging. Our faith isn't rooted in blind acceptance. It's rooted in the critical investigation of facts and the historical evidence that he so meticulously gathered.
It models that critical investigation. We find stability in knowing that the historical grounding of our faith was rigorously tested from the very, very beginning. The whole purpose of Luke's account of Jesus, the ultimate man, is to ground our hope in verifiable historical truth.
Okay, so from the historical, we move to the genealogical. And here we face what, on the surface, looks like a pretty confusing paradox. Why do we have two different genealogies for Jesus?
And the answer is that they fulfill two entirely distinct legal and theological requirements. Together, they establish Jesus as both the King of Israel and the universal man.
So Matthew gives us Jesus the King,
providing the legal right to the throne.
and Luke gives us Jesus the ultimate man,
Providing the human connection to everyone.
Let's start with Matthew's. He begins by tracing the lineage primarily through Joseph, which establishes that legal right to the throne. And he opens by calling Jesus the son of David, son of Abraham.
That opening line is everything. It's Matthew's declaration of Jesus' messianic credentials. By linking Jesus to David and Abraham, he's connecting him directly to the two most crucial Old Testament covenant promises.
The Abrahamic and the Davidic covenants.
Right. The Abrahamic covenant from Genesis 12, which promised blessing for all nations through Abraham's seed, and the Davidic covenant from 2 Samuel 7, which promised an eternal kingdom through David's line. This genealogy is Matthew's legal proof of Jesus' jus regnum, his legal right to the throne of Israel.
And he organizes this long list of names with this very strict, very deliberate structure.
Yes, the structure itself is part of the message. Matthew organizes all of Israel's history into 3 symbolic sets of 14 generations.
From Abraham to David, then David to the Babylonian exile, and the exile to Christ.
Exactly. And the number 14 is significant. It's the numerical value, the gematria, of the Hebrew name DVD for David. D is 4, V is 6, D is 4. Add them up, you get 14.
So he's using number symbolism to show David, David, David.
He is. By using this structure, Matthew is signaling divine order. He's showing that all of history was being divinely choreographed to lead to this one king at this exact moment.
And then Matthew does something highly unusual for a Jewish genealogy, which were almost always patriarchal. He includes 4 women in addition to Mary: Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Bathsheba. Why break tradition like that?
This is one of the most powerful and, frankly, revolutionary parts of Matthew's account, because these were not pristine figures from Israel's history, not by a long shot.
No, Tamar committed deception.
Rahab was a harlot and a Gentile. Ruth was a Moabite, a Gentile from an enemy nation. And Bathsheba isn't even named directly. She's called the wife of Uriah, which immediately calls to mind King David's great sin of adultery and murder.
So he's highlighting God's radical grace through flawed ancestors.
Absolutely. He's showing that the lineage of the Messiah is not ideal. It's morally complex, it's marked by scandal, and it includes outsiders. This foreshadows the king's universal domain. It proves that God's plan works through imperfect people, through Gentiles, through those with scandalous pasts. It's a profound social and theological statement. He's breaking down all the barriers of ethnicity and perceived moral purity.
For us today, that's incredibly reassuring, isn't it? I mean, if the king's own ancestry included these deep human messes, it certainly makes you feel better about your own family history and all of your own flaws.
It heals that identity crisis that's so often rooted in our perceived failures or our family's failures. But now we have to address a major legal obstacle in Matthew's list. The curse. Matthew's line goes through King Jeconiah. And Jeconiah was so evil that God pronounced a curse on his line in the book of Jeremiah, declaring that none of his descendants would ever sit on the throne of David.
Which seems like a massive deal-breaking problem for Jesus' claim to the throne if Joseph is his legal father through that exact line.
It would be.
Yeah.
It would be an insurmountable problem if Joseph were his biological father. And this is the absolute brilliance of the harmonized account. Matthew secures the legal right to the throne through Joseph. Joseph is the necessary public and legal heir. But because Jesus was born of Mary by the Holy Spirit,
The virgin birth.
he is not Joseph's biological son. He retains the legal claim through his adoption by Joseph, while completely avoiding the biological curse that was placed on Jeconiah's descendants.
It's like a careful divine surgical operation on history.
It is. And we should also note that Matthew omits certain names to keep his neat structure of 3 sets of 14.
Which might seem like he's doctoring the books, but there's a theological point there too, right?
A huge one. Matthew is demonstrating that God maintains sovereign control over history. He's confirming that concept of divine judgment you see in Deuteronomy, that God can blot out the names of those who turn to great evil. It's a purposeful, theologically curated list. It's designed to show the king arrived exactly when God determined, cleansing the line as necessary along the way.
Okay, so if Matthew is focused on the Jewish king, Luke is focused on the universal man. He traces the line backward, which is different, starting with Jesus, and he notes that Jesus was supposedly the son of Joseph.
That little word, supposedly, is Luke acknowledging the legal parentage while carefully preserving the truth of the virgin birth. But the direction is the key. Luke traces the lineage backward, past David, past Abraham, all the way back.
Past Noah, past Seth, all the way to Adam, the son of God. Why go all the way back to Adam?
By connecting Jesus directly to Adam, Luke is emphasizing Jesus' solidarity with all humanity. Remember, Luke is writing for a broad, universal audience. His Greek historical method told us that. And now his genealogy proclaims a salvation that touches every nation, every person. He's anchoring our hope in our shared human origin and the divine image.
And this immediately sets up the typology of the second Adam.
Yes, the first Adam, from Genesis, brought sin and death to all of humanity. Paul explains this in Romans 5. But Jesus, as the second Adam, is the perfect man who restores the relationship that was lost by the first.
Paul really fleshes this out in 1 Corinthians, doesn't he?
He does. He contrasts the living soul, the first Adam, with the life-giving spirit of the last Adam. Jesus fulfills the role as the new head of the human race. He restores sonship and the ability for humanity to bear God's image fully once again.
So the harmonized accounts are just essential. You can't have one without the other. Without Matthew, you miss the legal right to the throne of Israel.
And without Luke, you miss the universal connection to all of humanity. The two genealogies together proclaim that the eternal God, from John's Gospel, has arrived as the historically verifiable King of Israel, from Matthew's Gospel, and the universal representative and restorer of all humankind, from Luke's. It's a complete picture.
So we've established the identity of Christ. Now we look at the immediate prelude to his arrival. The miraculous story of John the Baptist's conception, which is detailed so meticulously by Luke. This entire section feels like a story of hope just springing out of impossible circumstances.
It is. And again, Luke anchors this narrative with a precise historical setting. In the days of Herod, king of Judea.
So this isn't once upon a time?
No, this is verifiable, politically charged history. Herod the Great was Rome's puppet king. It was a period of severe political instability, and there was this intense national longing for the true Davidic king to finally arrive.
And this political oppression is contrasted so sharply with the spiritual lives of Zechariah, a priest, and his wife Elizabeth, a descendant of Aaron. They were righteous before God, walking blamelessly in all the Lord's commandments.
Righteous people.
And yet they carried this profound private sorrow. They were old and they were childless.
And this brings us to the emotional and social analysis of their situation. In ancient Jewish society, barrenness wasn't just a private grief. It carried intense cultural shame, what they called reproach, and immense personal sorrow. So their exemplary obedience, their righteousness, it contrasted so painfully with their public disappointment.
They were doing everything right by the book, and yet they were enduring this deep, persistent trial.
And that personal sorrow, it serves a deeper spiritual typology, doesn't it? Their barrenness mirrors the long spiritual barrenness of Israel itself. For about 400 years, from the prophet Malachi until this very moment, God's prophetic voice had been silent.
The intertestamental period.
Yes. So God chooses this human impossibility, old age, and barrenness to signal that the silence is about to be broken. He uses these dead places, both in history and in individual lives, to bring forth the dramatic renewal that's going to herald the Messiah.
The scene then shifts to the temple. Zechariah is chosen by lot to enter the holy place and burn incense. This was a huge honor, right? A once-in-a-lifetime thing for a priest.
It was. And it's symbolic. The incense represents the communal prayers of the people rising up to God. So it's the perfect spiritual backdrop. The people are outside, praying, waiting, and suddenly, in the silence of the sanctuary, the angel Gabriel appears.
And Gabriel highlights this powerful behind-the-scenes reality when he identifies himself. He says, "I have been standing in the sight of God."
Which just shows the active, immediate involvement of the angelic realm in God's unfolding plan. This isn't a random event. It's a dispatched mission for the throne room of heaven.
And Zechariah is fearful, which seems like a completely natural, human, psychological response to the divine suddenly intruding into your ordinary workday.
Absolutely. But Gabriel brings this miraculous promise. Elizabeth will bear a son, and his name will be John.
And John's specific mission is laid out immediately. He'll be great before the Lord, filled with the Holy Spirit from the womb, and he will turn many of the sons of Israel to the Lord their God.
And that defines the Elijah typology. John is the fulfillment of the promise made at the very end of the book of Malachi.
The last words of the Old Testament.
Very last words. Malachi promised that Elijah would come before the great and awesome day of the Lord. And so John comes in the spirit and power of Elijah. He's not Elijah resurrected, but he bears that same fiery, uncompromising prophetic authority. His job is to prepare a people prepared for the Lord.
So his mission is one of national revival, of reformation.
It is. In that line about how he will turn the hearts of fathers back to children, that highlights a critical social impact. John's ministry is about relational healing. It's about preparing the family unit and the entire nation for the Messiah's arrival by restoring generational hope and unity.
And in a society that was so deeply fractured under Roman rule, that need for familial and national reconciliation would have been paramount before the king could arrive.
Absolutely. The king demands a prepared, a unified people.
And yet, despite being in the temple, despite the presence of an angel who just confirmed he stands in the presence of God, Zechariah's immediate response is doubt. It's rooted in physical reality. How will I know this? For I am old, and my wife is advanced in her days.
It's just raw psychological realism, isn't it? Zechariah is demanding a verifiable, almost scientific guarantee for a miraculous intervention, even while he is witnessing a supernatural event. He is questioning the possibility based entirely on human limitations and biological facts.
He prioritized his physical reality over the spiritual messenger standing right in front of him.
He did. And Gabriel's response is swift and immediate. Muteness. Behold, you will be silent, because you did not believe my words.
So the consequence is both a discipline and a sign.
Yes. The silence forces Zechariah into this 9-month period of quiet reflection and trust. It's a forced incubation of faith. But for the community waiting outside, his inability to speak becomes the definitive sign.
A sign that something had happened in there.
Something big. A sign that the long prophetic silence was finally broken, that God was moving powerfully in the unseen realm. It addresses that internal spiritual battle between human fear and divine promise, and it forces this priest to rely on faith alone.
And meanwhile, Elizabeth conceives, and she hides herself for 5 months, recognizing that God acted to take away my reproach among men.
Her response is just this quiet, deep gratitude. The pregnancy itself is the proof that God has intervened, that he's overridden human impossibility. This entire story is a perfect microcosm of the behind-the-scenes warfare. God's power overcomes human limitations, skepticism, and doubt. It signals the end of that long, silent intertestamental period.
So for us today, this story is just a powerful encouragement. It shows that God remembers the righteous even when they're suffering profound disappointment.
The delay of the promise was not a denial, and he brought life from their dead places. It confirms that nothing is impossible with God, and that even our moments of discipline can be used by him to cultivate greater faith and awe.
So what does this all mean? When we synthesize the cosmic, the historical, the legal, and this miraculous preparation, what's the takeaway? We've covered so much territory, proving this deep and singular identity of Jesus through these foundational texts.
I think when you put it all together, the synthesized accounts lay a single coherent foundation that is just unshakable. They affirm that Jesus Christ is, all at the same time, one the eternal God.
From John, the pre-existent Logos, the Creator.
2, the legitimate king, from Matthew, the Davidic heir with the legal right to rule Israel, fulfilling all of prophecy.
3, the perfect man and universal representative, which we get from Luke. The second Adam, connected to all of humanity, whose story is historically verifiable.
And 4, the self-emptying servant. This is implied by John's incarnation and Luke's focus on the humble forerunner. His mission begins in obedience and humility to accomplish the Father's will.
And this unified, multi-perspective approach, it just gives certainty, doesn't it? Our faith rests on both divine revelation, John's Logos doctrine, and on historical evidence, Luke's careful, verifiable research. That combination is just so potent.
It is. And these foundational stories provide these powerful anchors for our volatile modern lives. They impact us as individuals, in our relationships, and even culturally.
Okay, let's talk about that. For the individual and our identity, if we receive Christ, John 1.12 promises we get the right to become children of God. In a world that is obsessed with performance and self-definition, that is huge.
It is. Our identity is secured not by our flawed lineage or what we accomplish, but by receiving the grace of the eternal King. And Luke's focus on verifiable facts provides stability against the constant misinformation and anxiety that defines so much of modern culture.
What about for families and generational hope?
The story of Zechariah and Elizabeth is an encouragement to be faithful and persistent amid long periods of waiting, whether that's waiting for children or financial stability or reconciliation. And the genealogies, with their complicated, flawed ancestors, they remind us that God works redemptively through generations.
It should encourage us to approach our own family histories, flaws and all, with a sense of hope, right? With an anticipation of God's redemption.
It should. And then there's the cultural and social impact. The inclusive genealogies, Matthew including Gentiles and women with scandalous pasts, Luke tracing the line all the way back to Adam, they directly challenge modern tribalism and ethnic division.
The universal scope of the ultimate man, Jesus, proclaims a kingship that brings unity and justice across every cultural line.
Yes. The Logos light transcends our political divides and our social media echo chambers. And the spiritual assurance in all of this is just paramount. We see God's meticulous sovereign plan unfolding, ensuring that the Messiah arrived precisely on time, fulfilling centuries of complex, interwoven promises.
That foundation confirms that even when the world seems at its most chaotic, the divine plan is not derailed. God remains faithful, and his purposes will prevail.
They will.
We began this whole deep dive with that stunning declaration in John 1.5. Every time the light arrives, the darkness resists, but it cannot prevail. The darkness has not contained it. The spiritual struggle is real. It's anchored in the resistance of the forces of evil to divine truth.
We have to internalize that truth. So here's the final provocative thought for you to take away. What specific darkness, and that could be personal doubt, anxiety about the future, cultural pressures pulling you away from truth, or just a pattern of sin, what darkness in your life right now is Christ's eternal light shining upon?
And knowing that the Word who created the cosmos is the one who tabernacled among us, how will you let that unquenchable light transform your certainty and your direction today?
That's the challenge of the Incarnation.